Hello, everyone. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to another Let's Read segment. And of course, we're going to continue reading Beyond Religion by the Dalai Lama. And in this video, we're going to be reading chapter 6, and it is titled The Role of Discernment, which I think is something that is so important to practice, especially this day and age when information and an abundance of it is everywhere. Much of it is fake, much of it is debunked, and we still don't know that. Much of it is manipulated because a lot of things are censored, a lot of things they don't want us to see or understand. And so one of the wonderful things about being a human being and being a thinking and able human being is that you can look at both sides of everything before you make an informed decision, rather than being stuck on something for whatever reason and then not being open to looking at the other side. This way, you know that whatever decision you're making, regardless of what aspect it has to do with your life, you know that you're making a good decision, not only for yourself, but for everybody, depending on what that decision is. And of course, if you live here in America, and even if you don't, because our politics are certainly of great interest to Australia, England, France, Canada, many other countries around the world, you can see clearly what's going on here in America with the elections right now. And I see a lot of people not practicing discernment. They run with whatever they're told or whatever they believed long ago, and they don't look at things from both sides. They're very stuck on the narrative. And I think that most everybody knows that if you want to find out whatever you want to find out, all you need to do is a little bit of digging on the internet and you will find what you're looking for. And it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to change your mind. And I think that's just the beautiful thing about being a human being versus the other ways that animals make their decisions that he talks about earlier in the book based off of the five senses. We have the ability to go far beyond that. And with that, we can make a big difference, whether that be a negative experience or a positive or a good decision or a not so good decision. Practice your discernment before you take anything in as your truth, your belief. Always. I don't care what anybody says. So with that, let's talk about the role of discernment. Until now, I have emphasized the importance of compassion, a motivation of genuine concern for others' welfare, as the foundation of ethics and spiritual well-being, and even the basis for understanding justice. Recognizing our shared humanity and our biological nature as beings whose happiness is dependent on others, we learn to open our hearts, and in doing so, we gain a sense of purpose and of connection with those around us. Broad, unbiased compassion, I have also suggested, is the ground from which all positive inner values like patience, kindness, forgiveness, self-discipline, contentment, and so on emerge. However, while sound compassionate motivation is the foundation of ethics and spirituality, a further factor is crucial if we are to achieve a balanced and genuinely universal system of ethics. While intention is the first and most important factor in guaranteeing that our behavior is ethical, we also need discernment to ensure that the choices we make are realistic and that our good intentions do not go to waste. If, for example, politicians take their country to war without having fully considered the likely consequences, then even if their motivation is sincerely compassionate, the outcome is likely to be disastrous. What is required, therefore, in addition to good intention, is the use of our critical faculty, our discernment. The exercise of discernment, which enables us to relate to situations in a manner that is in tune with reality, enables us to translate our good intentions into good outcomes. Discernment also plays a crucial role in generating our own personal level of ethical awareness. Using our intelligence is the way we come to understanding, and understanding is the basis of awareness. So ethical awareness, that is to say, awareness of what will benefit both oneself and others, does not arise magically, but comes from the use of reason. In this, education in ethical awareness is no different from any other kind of education. Establishing inner values. All of our actions have consequences, and these inevitably have an impact on both ourselves and others. Since in everyday life we constantly have to make small decisions which have this ethical dimension, it is very helpful to have basic ethical rules or guidelines to fall back on. Even the choice of which products to buy or what food to eat involves some ethical discernment. When making such choices, we generally do not have the opportunity to think through all the options available and reflect on all probable consequences on a case-by-case basis. In fact, if we were to reflect deeply on every single ethical choice we face, I don't think we would have much time left for anything else. For those occasions when we do not have time to work things out in detail, it is useful to have internalized general rules to guide our actions. The major religions of the world are all rich in such guidelines, and when these rules are inculcated from an early age, they become part of a person's internal value system. For example, in traditional Tibetan society, the Buddhist principle of avoidance of causing harm to animals was a value that people acquired from the cultural environment. From a young age, children were taught to avoid killing even insects. So this avoidance became internalized and automatic. If they accidentally happened to step on an insect, they would say, "Oh, the poor thing." In Tibet, in the past, there was actually legislation banning hunting and fishing, except in a few areas where people's livelihood depended on these activities. There were also more specific laws protecting wildlife, such as regulations concerning the migrating birds that nest around Manasaravar and other lakes. Paid rangers ensured that their eggs were not disturbed. These regulations are examples of the ways the prevailing culture helps to form people's ethical priorities. But in a purely secular context, although people, of course, still have ingrained values, what these are cannot always be taken for granted. Some actions, such as killing, stealing, lying, slander, and sexual exploitation, all of which are forms of violence, are by definition harmful to others. So most people instinctively feel the value of avoiding them. But we need to go further than this in a globalized world in which religious moral guidelines are not universally accepted. We need to use our discernment to gain understanding about the benefits of certain kinds of behavior and the negative consequences of other kinds. In this way, we can develop an internalized value system to guide us in our responses to everyday life. What is therefore required is that we reflect on our behavior, using our discernment to assess which of our actions are most harmful to others and ourselves, and which are most beneficial. In doing so, we can gradually learn to identify those aspects of our conduct which need to be curbed and those which need to be cultivated. For example, by using our discernment to consider the consequences of violence, we can gradually reach a clear understanding and conviction of its harmfulness and futility. Similarly, by using our discernment to reflect on the consequences of patience or generosity, we can come to understand their positive effects, and we can nurture this understanding so that it becomes a deeply ingrained part of our awareness. When this happens, we will find that our behavior is spontaneously more oriented toward the well-being of others. This kind of mental training is a theme to which I will return in the second part of the book. Dealing with dilemmas. While internalized values are indispensable as practical tools for living ethically, there are unfortunately exceptional circumstances in which such general principles are inadequate. Particular situations may present themselves in which we are forced to choose between principles we hold dear. It is in such cases that the use of discernment in service of our compassionate motivation becomes crucial. For only by assessing the probable consequences and weighing the pros and cons of different courses of action can we come to a balanced conclusion about which course of action is most beneficial. In my own case, when called upon to make a difficult decision, I always start by checking my motivation. Do I truly have others' well-being at heart? Am I under the sway of any disturbing emotions such as anger, impatience, or hostility? Having determined that my motivation is sound, I then look carefully at the situation in context. What are the underlying causes and conditions that have given rise to it? What choices do I have? What are their likely outcomes? And which course of action, on balance, is most likely to yield the greatest long-term benefit for others? Making decisions in this way, I find, means they are not the cause of any regret later on. So while I encourage the reader to internalize a personal value system, it would be unrealistic to suppose that matters of ethics can be determined purely on the basis of rules and precepts. Matters of ethics are often not black and white. After checking to be sure that we are motivated by concern for the welfare of humanity, we must weigh the pros and cons of the various paths open to us, and then let ourselves be guided by a natural sense of responsibility. This essentially is what it means to be wise. Taking a holistic view. Sorry, my hair keeps flopping in my face there. Discernment is crucial if we are to have a realistic understanding of the world that we live in. Here, the key principle we need to grasp is that of interdependence. This general yet profound principle can be approached at various levels and in various contexts. It is worth careful consideration. We have already discussed the interdependence of our own well-being and that of others. In addition, interdependence is a characteristic of the world which is apparent in many fields. We might consider interdependence in global finance or economics, or the interdependence of humanity itself in the age of globalization, or interdependence in the natural world, which biologists discuss in terms of food chain and symbiosis between living organisms, and in the challenging field of quantum physics, with its notions of general relativity and quantum entanglement. There is interdependence even in theories of the origin of the universe. Recognizing that so many aspects of our world are characterized by relations of mutual dependence can help us form a more realistic understanding of the world, an understanding that is more in keeping with the way things really are. Every situation we face in life arises from the convergence of a great number of contributing factors. So taking a broad view is essential if our responses are to be realistic. It is not enough to look at any given situation or problem from only one perspective. We need to look at it from this direction and that direction, from all sides. As I often say, we should look from front and back, the 2 dimensions, from the right and the left side, 4 dimensions, and from above and below, making 6 dimensions. When we do this, when we take this kind of broader or more holistic perspective, our responses will definitely be more in tune with reality. And with this, we are more likely to achieve our objectives. Often when problems arise, people have an unfortunate tendency to view them from too narrow a perspective. For example, imagine that your car won't start. For you to keep turning the key again and again, becoming frustrated and running the battery down would be foolish. It would be more realistic to pause and consider what might have caused the problem. Could it be lack of fuel or something to do with the rainy weather? Simply stepping back and looking at the situation from a broader perspective will allow you to approach the problem more calmly. Needless to say, this will also give you a better chance of being able to deal with the problem efficiently. Again, when misfortune befalls us, our tendency is to see it as the consequence of a single cause and rush to blame others. But this kind of overly emotional response is actually quite unrealistic. When the bus is late, what benefit do we gain from getting angry with the driver? Very often, the actions of any single person play only a minor role in the way events unfold. Responding to setbacks with accusations and blame, whether directed at others or at oneself, is generally misguided and very likely will only worsen the situation. The fact is, every incident we encounter comes about as the result of countless different causes and conditions, many of which are beyond any individual's control, and some of which may even remain hidden altogether. So in the face of a major challenge, such as losing a job, we may become paralyzed by anxiety, locked on to the negative aspects of what has happened, thinking, now I won't be able to support my family, and poor me, I'll never get another job. The danger of this attitude is that by focusing too narrowly on our immediate predicament, we will find ourselves unable to do anything about it. In contrast, using our discernment to look at situations in their broader context and from different perspectives will help us find solutions. Inevitable uncertainty. Of course, no matter how hard we may try, human discernment is always incomplete. Unless we are clairvoyant or omniscient like Buddha or like God, we will never see the entire picture, and we will never know all the causes that have given rise to any situation. Nor can we foresee all the consequences of our actions. There is always bound to be some element of uncertainty. It is important to acknowledge this, but it should not worry us. Still less should it make us despair of the value of rational assessment. Instead, it should temper our actions with proper humility and caution. Sometimes admitting that we do not know an answer can be helpful in itself. If we do not know something, it is better to admit it openly than to feign certainty out of misplaced pride or vanity. This uncertainty is another reason why ethics must be grounded at the level of motivation, as I have said, rather than purely on consideration of consequences. The fact is, the consequences of our actions are often not within our control. Where we do have control is at the level of motivation and in deploying our critical faculties, our discernment. When we combine these two elements, we can ensure that we are doing our best. And the last section, the fruits of discernment. All the uses of discernment outlined above give us understanding, and reflection on that understanding gives us a deeper and more enduring awareness. When discernment is combined with a compassionate motivation, we have the two key components of a comprehensive approach to ethics and spiritual well-being in a secular context. And these two components, compassion and discernment, are mutually reinforcing. Compassion, by reducing fear and distrust, creates a space in our hearts and minds that is calm and settled. And this space makes it much easier for us to exercise discernment or intelligence. Similarly, the exercise of discernment can strengthen our conviction of the necessity and the benefits of compassion. The two, therefore, complement each other in a profound way. All right, so that completes chapter 6, which was a shorter chapter. And in the next chapter, we're going to be reading Ethics in Our Shared World. So we will stop right there. I know the video right before this was much longer, so balancing it out with the shorter chapter here. So thank you so much for joining me. I really love reading these videos to you guys. As I've said many times before, even if these videos only reach and help a handful of people or even just one person, that is 100% my goal, is to share this information with you guys. You take it however you like. You take whatever you want out of it. You filter out the rest. And I think I take at least a few things out of every book that I read, especially in this genre. So until next time, as always, as usual, please take care of yourself. Please take care of those around you. I will see you again soon for chapter 7. Bye-bye.